Welcome to QNC Presents Conversations with Creators. In each episode, I dive deep into the minds of filmmakers from every corner of the industry. Whether it's horror, drama, sci-fi, or comedy, we'll explore the creative journeys behind these films, the challenges faced, and the passions that drive these storytellers. So join me as I go behind the scenes and discover what it takes to bring visions to life. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Creators. I'm your host, Rick Clifton, and today I am honored to be joined by two very incredible storytellers whose work blends Cajun culture, history, and justice, both on screen and also in real life. So Pat Mire is an internationally recognized filmmaker whose acclaimed documentaries have preserved and celebrated Cajun culture for decades. He's also the founder and artistic director of CinemaOnTheBayou, a major French-English film festival in Louisiana. Joining him is Rebecca Hudsmith, a powerhouse in both law and film. As a federal public defender, she has dedicated her career to fighting for justice, including arguing cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. She's also been very instrumental in the independent film scene and co-runs CinemaOnTheBayou alongside Pat for nearly 2 decades now. And together, they are here to talk to me about their amazing film, Point Noire.
There doesn't seem to be enough here to kill 2 people.
There never is.
The families, they don't tell their secrets to outsiders.
Innocent or not, is that folk justice or a travesty of justice?
Oh, a toast to the Arsenault family, movers and shakers of this community of ours.
What's your connection to the case?
Providing guidance on the local culture, I guess you could say.
Stay of execution.
Yes.
That all seems like a long shot, no?
Jay Brasso. He was killed along with his wife on Mardi Gras. Joel Richard's on death row for it.
We want the truth.
You might not like what you find.
So Pat, Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you
We're
so
glad
much.
to be here. This
Thank
is
you,
wonderful.
I told you right before we started recording, I absolutely love this film. I only had a time to watch it once, but it is my intention to watch it again because it really is. I have so many things I want to talk about. It's just really great. But real quick, before we get started, how about you guys just sort of tell us what the movie is about?
Well, it's a movie about a falsely accused man on death row, a Cajun man. And Rebecca, you can pick it up there and just tell, about the film, what you...
It's really about folk justice.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is the way a community deals with events that occur that damage the community and those in it, how the community decides to deal with it, both 30 years ago when these murders happened on Mardi Gras night and 30 years forward when there's the possibility of an execution of someone who could be innocent of the crime of killing 2 people 30 years ago. So it's a film that's not so much about the criminal justice system as it is about how a community deals with what's right and what's wrong. And, it's not always a perfect resolution, but sometimes it may be better than just relying on the criminal justice system to mete out justice.
But also the film, tell them how it lays out. It's a search for the truth,
It's not because it's not really about the criminal.
It's not a courtroom drama.
It's more of a mystery. It's more of a cultural journey. And as Pat likes to say, it's a lot about the community of Point Noire, which is its own character.
Yeah, it's not just a supporting character in the film. The community and the geography, the look is a character in itself in the film. Yeah.
And it's also about inheritance and the good and bad that you inherit and from your community, from your parents, from your world, and how you deal with that, what you inherit.
Well, you brought up location and, sort of the Point Noir being a character into itself. I wanted to talk a little bit about the location and where you filmed. It's So I'm from the South. I live in Los Angeles, but I was born and raised in North Carolina. I'm not Cajun. I'm not from Louisiana, but a lot of these, I was instantly teleported back to where I grew up as I was watching this film. There were so many great moments, and one that really jumped out at me was, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say, but one that really jumped out at me is there's a moment where your two characters are having a meal on the hood of the car outside of this little country location. And I was like, oh my God, I did that growing up. Just, you don't think about it, but it just, it was just such a like a beautiful moment that just, like I said, it just teleported me back in time.
I
So I'd
did
love to
too.
talk about the location a little bit.
Yeah, well, it was various, but the rural, the farm locations were actually very, very close in Lions Point, where my brother's crawfish farm is, where we filmed a lot of it. It's real, very close to where True Detective was filmed, the first episode of True Detective. And when I did I fell in love with that series, but the first episode,
The first
season,
season.
the season was filmed. I'm 15, 20 miles from where we filmed. It's the same look, and I wanted the same look. I didn't want a stretch, so I wanted that dark, gritty look, and that could roll over into more of a 70s when I was coming of age and growing up in 70s, 80s kind of look. And that's the lookbook we started with. And I brought in some vintage lenses to have that look, anamorphic to have that, the wide stuff when we needed it. And so that all played in.
Oh, it's great. So I want to talk about the writing. So you guys co-wrote this together. Tell me about that process. I understand you wrote this during COVID. So, tell me about how it sort of came to be, and do I understand this correctly? This might be a bit of an autobiography in a way.
It is.
I'm afraid so.
It is.
Write what you know, as they say. What I want to say about Pat, first of all, because he might not say this himself, but when you talk about the community of Point Noire as a character, it's really, I think the audiences should appreciate that you're seeing a genuine insider's perspective on Cajun culture there. I mean, none of this is fake. Nothing. The eating boudin on the hood of the truck is a real thing that happens here. So much of what this film is about in terms of that setting is so real because Pat's been doing film, narrative, and documentary films on Cajun culture his whole life. That's his whole world, his whole being. And so I want audiences to know just how genuine that is. And that may be why you connected with it, because it feels real. It's not an outsider's perspective. It's not someone, not saying from LA, but maybe from the northern part of the country. But even any community might feel the genuineness of that. And that's important to us. Just like the aspect that deals with the legal issues is from my world of being a lawyer doing criminal defense and death penalty defense my whole career. And that's real. Those conversations are real type of conversations I've had with clients. I've sat with a client right before he's taken off to be executed in the electric chair, so it's real stuff and genuine. I mean, not like based on real cases, but so.
Rebecca's argued at the U.S. Supreme Court and won. I mean, she's really the top of the heap, all this stuff. And there is a connection that she saved the man's life by using my editor on one project that I had sitting right here. I was editing a film right here, and she said, well, maybe a short film on this person. And she did. And he still received 30 years, but they didn't execute him. They didn't kill him. And so it was a seed that was set in me. I'm saying we should maybe do a movie about this. And when COVID hit, we were here in this big house, trapped. And I said, it's time to do it.
And I was during the week, I was working and doing Zoom court and all this crazy Zoom.
And I always wanted to do a project on folk justice where the community played a role in finding the truth.
No, let's be honest. He called me when we first met at the first CinemaOnTheBayou Film Festival.
We met at the first CinemaOnTheBayou 20 years ago.
And Rick, his line was, "Let's meet for dinner. I'm thinking of doing a film on folk justice." That was his line.
We finally did.
We finally did it. Anyway, I had this idea that I'd started as a novel. Every lawyer wants to write a novel, I'm afraid. But I had gone to a class at the local university that the novelist Ernest Gaines taught once a year. I got to go and be in his class for a whole semester. And that was the story I presented. And, I was inspired to do something with that. And when Pat said it's COVID, we're not going anywhere every weekend, we're just staying put, we made a decision, a commitment to write. We took that kernel of that story that started with Professor Gaines' class and added his cultural, just everything he knows about the Cajun culture that's so unique, and both the good and bad of it, the darkness and the lightness. And we decided to pull all that together. And so every weekend I would write, and then during the week he would edit and add and adjust. And then we would start the weekend fighting about all of those changes he made. And then we would negotiate, and I would write some more, and then he would write. And then during the week while I'm on my Zoom calls, trying to be a lawyer, he would adjust. And it took a while.
Yeah, well, I told Rebecca when we started, I said, I like my wine. I said, I will not shave and I will not take a drink of wine until we have
not a drink at all.
Not a drink at all, of anything, until we have a first draft. Well, 6 months later, I had a beard like this, of course. Right?
He was a very sober Santa Claus. He was no fun to be around.
And then, please, come on. And then we had a first draft, And of course, I was shaving with a glass of wine in my hand, but it was okay. We had a draft, and we were happy. And it just really unfolded like we wanted. And it's like always, Rick, as you very well know this, and people who are around movies, every movie has three parts to it. It's the one you write, it's the one you shoot, and then it's the one you edit.
Yeah.
And so
I had always heard that, but it's so true.
Yeah, it's true.
This
and
the heart is the same regardless.
We beautiful, and through production and stuff. But what we did with the editing was bring it back to the original screenplay, really. And that's nothing more pleasing than that. I mean, giving birth to a new baby that you saw, you dreamed about before.
To your point, I have written stuff, and then when you start filming it, for me, the magic is always in when it starts to come to life, and then it's like, oh, what if we did this? And then you start making the changes in the actual film that will sometimes lead to the most amazing things on screen. So that's what I love about the film industry overall. It's just
I was new to that because I've been with Pat on some of his interviews for his documentaries, like he interviewed Chris Christopherson and Edward James Olmos for one of his documentaries, and I got to go be there.
Lots of people, but anyway.
And on and on and on. But this was different, that being on set for those 6 weeks, whatever. And I would go and observe. And I will say this, Rick, the first time I heard these really good actors, the ones behind me, the leads, saying words that I had written or that Pat and I had written together, because he said, your dialogue, you sound like a lawyer all the time. I'm like, I am a lawyer. But which ended up being a line in the film. You sound like a lawyer, So it is amazing to see that. And then in the course of the production, things happen. I mean, we had to rewrite some scenes in the middle of the night, and they were better. And even through adversity, they were better because of the creative process being so intense at that time.
that's my absolute thing It's the whole business is magical, but even editing, I love editing. I love sound design, actually. And I do want to talk about some of the sound and stuff for your film, but sound design is probably my favorite aspect of
It's so
filmmaking.
important. It's over 50% of it. You know that.
Exactly. It can make or break it. So,
Yeah, it's just so important. And we had our sound designer was a disciple of Paul Ledford, who's a dear friend of mine. If you know who Paul Ledford is, he's every Steven Soderbergh film. He's been the sound mixer and worked with Larry Blake and those people. So Andrew DeRitter, who's a young Paul Ledford, and cut from that, we were fortunate, and then to get him to come with Andrew Morgan Smith, who is an upcoming composer, music composer.
He right before he started working with us, he had just finished a Nicolas Cage film.
Yeah,
he works here in Lafayette, but he does Hollywood stuff.
Yeah, and he luckily he's young and loves independent film, and so.
Well, he always wanted to work with you.
Yeah, it's true, but it just worked out well, and we just when those things come together, it was a blessing, because we had a hard time. We had nearly $1 million in the bank, and because it's just south of $1 million. I don't mind saying the deal, but it looks like a much higher price film. But the thing about it is that this happened when we shot it was right after COVID. And if you know anything about the Louisiana had 39 feature films that started up.
Productions
is what I'm saying. So the depth wasn't here. We couldn't crew up. I've never seen that at my age. I said, man, it's always so hard to get the money to do the project. And now we have.
Now you got the money, you don't have the crew.
Throwing money at me, and it's in the bank, and we couldn't crew up. So it was really hard. And we finally put it together and got some good people on board and went forward. And I guess about a 45 man film crew that we did in 6 weeks, which is, we went slow and careful with it, so I'm pleased, Rick, I'm pleased with it.
Well, you should be. It's a beautiful piece of work for sure. Pat, I'd love to talk about your career overall just a little bit. I know your films, you've talked about in the past about you've always sort of sought to correct misconceptions about the Cajun culture.
Yeah.
And I'd love to have you talk a little bit about some of those important elements of Cajun life and history that you wanted to not only include in this film, but also your films.
Well, right now it just happens to be the day before Mardi Gras. And when Rebecca mentioned that a while ago, some of us, the I guess the cultural police force, if you will, of Cajun culture, because we weren't allowed group. We didn't, we put up with a lot. We didn't complain like Hispanics or the blacks or this or that. We went along for so long with it because we laughed at ourselves. But we were tired of people from New York or LA coming in and showing drunks falling off horses during Mardi Gras. They do that, but there's more. There's a reason they're running Mardi Gras. There's more behind it. There's a force behind it. Someone, those things were important to me, and I managed to incorporate that into it. And with that, still that thread right there, my debut feature film, narrative feature, because I made a living doing documentary films, back shooting film, 16 millimeter and 35, when PBS was paying $1,000 a minute for a show, and those things don't happen anymore. You have to come in with a corporate sponsors and whatnot. But in Dirty Rice, in my debut feature, I did in '97. I did this. It's much bigger scene with a rural Mardi Gras, and John Sayles wanted to do it in Passion Fish and couldn't do it. And I was shooting right after and right before the Apostle was going on. So I had a really top-notch film crew making this film for about $500,000, and then I realized then that this was something different. I'm reaching a big audience when you play PBS, national PBS. But when you do it in a narrative feature, you're reaching a different kind of audience that I think you can affect them. I don't know if I've answered what you asked me, Rick, but it was, to me, it was really important incorporating more factual elements into a story and not just feeling like you could whiz it by them, you know.
And what I've learned, they call me Les Americains. I'm from
Les
North
Americains.
Louisiana, but that, down here, and the Cajun people are just lovely, and they embrace you and they love you. And then you become part of them, but they've had to, first these are people who migrated from France to what is Nova Scotia and Canada, and then were forced out of Canada by the British when they took over, and many were put on boats, ended up dead. A lot ended up, there's a whole, he did a film called Against the Tide about all of this, so I've learned a lot through him. But so they're very much survivors, to go from Canada where it's freezing cold to South Louisiana where and learn to live and thrive here, and then be discriminated against because they spoke French, because they were just different. And so it has been eye-opening for me, even being from Louisiana, to be a part of this culture, to be a part of it through Pat, and to be so welcomed into it, and to learn so much about just sort of that generational sense of, we started here through what was essentially a genocide of our people and Canada. And that's always sort of a part I'm learning of what Cajuns, they, like he said, they look like they're having fun getting drunk and falling off horses, but there's really a lot more to it than that. And that's what he tries to bring to the screen.
Yeah, and to reach a wider audience. And we had the world premiere of this film in Canada, but to reach a wide audience, you have to have these themes that can play out with you, Rick, or wherever you come from. And it's often universal. It's coming home stories. It's part of everything that we can all. You could shoot it here. You could shoot it in Kansas. You could have made this film in Kansas, but because we shot it here, and because it has that tapestry, that whole fold out of who we are, and it's really important for me. I don't need to surround myself with Cajuns to make a movie. Just because I bring that as a driving force in there. But I did have, on this show, I did have a nice mix of people. The majority of people that didn't know or understand Cajun culture, but I'm telling you, after 6 weeks when they left, they had a feeling.
A crash course.
they were in.
PhD. I love it. So one of the things that you were just talking about is sort of incorporating that a little bit into this film. I have to ask the question: the documentaries that are showing in the film, are those yours?
Yes. Yes.
I knew it.
Did you see the one with me? And there's a whole reason why the hand fishing part is there, because in the story, the weapon, the murder weapon, was thrown into the bayou and found by a hand fisherman. So and he's a filmmaker, the lead character, the person, Roy Dupuis, who's really playing me, and he wore all my clothes for the whole thing. He walked and talked like me, and anyway, that scene of that bayou person fishing the bayou, that's me actually pulling out fish when I was 32 years old. So you see me a big black mustache on there and dark hair, and yeah, those scenes, all those scenes were through the years of footage.
I just knew they were. I felt it in my gut, and I was like, I'm gonna have to go back now and watch some of these just to sort of re-immerse myself into that. But great segue. Let's talk about this cast a little bit. Let's talk about, am I understanding correctly that you have a mix? Well, you have Roy Dupuis, who we all know, I think is, he's done quite a bit, but Film Nikita when I was growing up, that show, man, I didn't know that was him. Yes. I didn't know it was him until the movie was over, and I went to look at the cast, and I was like, oh my God, it's Michael from La Film.
Yeah, it's Michael. Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty weird that when I first met him in person, it's like, Michael's in our car.
Well, I wrote it, it seems so almost arrogant that you write. I wrote it for all the people. I wrote it for them in mind. There's a couple of people I didn't get, of course, but he was all.
That's how I write too, so I understand that.
He was a good deal. He was intended, and he was in as soon as, and Roy, you don't get Roy Dupuis unless he really, wants to do the project. I mean, you first of all, he doesn't read a script. We know his agent until you have certain money on the table to go that far. But he loved the story, and he loved the script, and so there's a connection too. You know, he's Quebecois, that you know, bilingual, the whole thing. But with all that said, and wanted to do it, and he was already he was going to, you know, play Pat Mire, but fictitiously, of course. But then we have him. We set the dates because we had pushed it back because we couldn't crew up. Finally said we're ready to go, and we had him. And then we couldn't get him because of immigrations. We had the hardest time. So it's another legal.
You know, he
issue.
came in through that big movie star thing, exception or whatever you call it, and we had to get, you know, I don't know if you've ever done that on a film, but to get someone I never had, and we of course had immigration lawyers, but it was very complex, and you had to. But I learned so much about him. I mean, ours was his 51st movie. That's not counting TV series and everything else he's done. And we had to show all of that and get letters from, you know, the Screen Actors Guild and the producers and all that, saying they didn't mind that he came in, and it's unique to him because he speaks both French and English, and it's bilingual. And
then all with that said, he's such a professional, hard worker too. The thing, it's not speaking French is one thing, but sounding Cajun French is not.
It's a little different.
Yeah.
Dialect.
Quebecois sounds different from La France, and they sound different from Acadie, and it's on and on. But the hardest thing is getting the English part, because we're just not from the South, and you can't just do a Southern drawl because we don't talk like that. And so that was going to, you know, that was what the plan was, to come in 3 weeks before we start production to live essentially with us, and, you know, be and talk and eat and everything, live like us, be us. Well, he didn't come on till 3 days after we started production, and he's the lead. So it was just so ballsy to start production without your lead.
A professional.
And he drove. He had a Tesla.
He drove like one day
nonstop.
Wow.
From Quebec to South Louisiana. Just
how many hours is that?
Well,
it's like 24 hours.
It was over 24 hours. It's 27, maybe 28 hours, something like that. But just stopping wherever you do, I guess, to get electricity.
Yeah.
Electric stop. And then put him on the set, because I was losing Zachary Richard, who's going on tour. That's, if you're going to do the scene, you have to be here. And I don't know, Rick, after that, it just started rolling so smooth that he fell right into it. There were things like, he said, I'll never learn to drive that crawfish boat because it's all hydraulics. And my brother, it was on the crawfish farm, my brother showed him in like a half hour. And once he got it, we couldn't get him out of the boat. He wanted to he's just having fun. So
I think it showed. It definitely came through.
Yeah.
He really looked like a natural crawfisherman to me when it was all said and done. But Pat's brother, who's just a lovely human being, really, and whose background is he's a teacher. He taught him how to do it.
He's been around me for so long, around films too. He's in all my films. He used to. It was everything from teaching him. You know, I shot film for a long time before digital, and so it was an incredible experience. And we had all the actors, so they were all, you know, handpicked, all put in a position.
Which really brings up to Cinema on the Bayou. I mean, a lot of the actors that are in this film for whom we wrote certain parts, like you said you like to do. I like that. I think that's nice too. They are people we met at Cinema on the Bayou.
A handful of them.
A number of them.
A lot of them that we brought in from the outside. A handful of them. Not Miriam Sear. She was in my debut feature, but yeah, that's a good connection. That's in fact.
Let's talk about Cinema on the Bayou a little bit. So you debuted this film there? Sorry, premiered it there? Sorry.
Well, we did. We wanted to do the U.S. premiere there. I'm sorry. I know it was kind of a little crazy, but it premiered in Canada, at FICFA, which is a 38-year-old film festival. It's a bilingual audience, a 300-seat magnificent theater, and it sold out the morning when tickets went on sale. And I was nervous because they I didn't know how I was going to play, because they primarily francophone, but they're all bilingual there. So it was, and this has mostly English. We have some French in it, but it's mostly English. And they laughed at the right places, Rick. And we started feeling, because I was real nervous. Yeah.
Yeah, don't you like,
what happened was, as you know, on a feature film, a narrative feature film, the tail credits are so doggone long. It's, you got to really want to there and watch credits roll. Well, they started clapping. And I mean, not just clapping, it was like a thunderous clap. They clapped all the way through the credit roll at the end. And about 4 or 5 minutes after, and I've been around the block, but I said, this is like, I told Rebecca, I said, I'm embarrassed. I don't know if I can get up. What are we going to say?
They were so sweet.
I knew we had something that was kind of special. It moved people. So that was good.
Yeah, we're going in March 15th at the New Orleans French Film Festival.
Yeah, we have a few more dates too. We got a couple of other dates and stuff, but we're not pushing in the film festivals really that much, because we're just close. We day before yesterday. When was it? Friday or what day was it? I'm lost at time with our deal. But anyway, we're about to sign a distribution deal, and it's a real good deal with a limited theatrical thing. So that won't happen till the fall. So they're gonna let us play around with it and have some fun with it till the fall. Then I guess you know how that goes. They'll just take it over, and then go to wherever, Netflix, or I think they were talking about Apple and stuff. Whatever.
I can't overemphasize the importance of the community that we, mainly Pat's, developed, of friends and filmmaker friends that we've created through CinemaOnTheBayou.
Yeah, we have such a great run. We have such a huge following, especially in Quebec, of course. But even like last night, I'm Not a Robot won an Academy Award. Well, it played at CinemaOnTheBayou the day it was nominated. But listen to this: it was sent to us September 5th, submitted to us September 5th. We gave it an official selection in early December, 7 weeks before it was nominated, long before it was shortlisted and then nominated. And by coincidence, we had a snowstorm over here that we never have.
I remember that.
It was crazy. So they knocked out our premiere, which ended up doing closing night, and we didn't have an opening night. So this film, which was scheduled for the second day of CinemaOnTheBayou, which became the first day. And in the first block that came up, it's there. And at the same day, it's nominated for an Academy Award, and it won last night. So, and this is not the first time. This was very unique, but we've picked 4 or 5 of them. We got a good run of films that come here, including the way you came into our lives in this deal with Jan O'Connell, her
When We Kill the Creators.
Yeah,
which is one of our.
And that film, I knew I was going to take right off. I'm going to tell you why. It was shot in 16 millimeter.
Mm-hmm. We're partial to 16 millimeter.
Yeah, well, I say, come on. Yeah, because you don't get a lot anymore, like that. And it was beautiful, had the look and everything else. And
we love Shelby Lynn.
Yeah. And
oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I talked to Cynthia Mort a few
weeks
ago.
Yeah, she came here. We love her.
Yeah, and we had the best conversation. She was absolutely fantastic. And it's just the film itself. Like I said, I think I told her, I was like, I feel like you made this movie for me. It felt very, a lot of it just resonated.
Yeah, I did too. And and it's not like he was a hangout buddy, but he met before, and he was just a Louisiana boy. He died. Poor Tony Joe White was in there, and the whole film was special.
Yeah, it wasn't long before that we had seen him live here in Lafayette. Tony Joe White. It was just when we saw he was in the film, and it was just.
We haven't met her in person, but our many conversations with Jan when we were going through that, she was just such a solid human being and producer and stuff.
Just
So
a good
I'm
person.
glad that she.
But that's
put us
part of the
together.
community. I mean, and when you
Exactly,
talk
right.
about magical moments on set and in making films, it's the truth. We say that every year. It's like, we didn't know this was going to happen, but this was a magical moment at our film festival.
Yeah.
Who knew? You know, it's
So how long
really,
has the festival been around now?
tell them how I got started in
Well, yeah,
2006.
well, Katrina in 2005 hit
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana, New Orleans, and knocked out New Orleans. I was living actually. I'm from the country here, but I was living in uptown New Orleans, and it knocked out New Orleans. But we all left, and so there was no New Orleans Film Festival 2005, and so we migrated. I did to Lafayette. And I get a call in early 2006, a couple of months, 2-3 months after Katrina, and it was from the National Film Board of Canada, and they called and said, a friend of yours, and they knew who I was, and it was franglais, it was in English and French, and they were saying that we had a U.S. premiere of André Gladou's film Maron, which was going to the New Orleans Film Festival, and he's going to lose his grant and this and that. And I said, well, what? And they said, well, first of all, we heard you were starting a film festival in Lafayette. And I said, well, you know, I was out of the bars last few nights, and I don't know. I said, maybe they said, I said, well, what does that entail? What do you? Well, he said, we have this premiere that was going to New Orleans, and that we take care of his flight, we'll take care of his hotel, and there's a stipend to help you get this started. And I said, I'm starting a film festival. And that's how CinemaOnTheBayou started. It was at the year after Katrina, and then this year was the 20th year of it. So time goes by.
20 years, wow. That's
It's hard to
fantastic.
believe.
Yeah,
and it really is a major francophone festival.
Yeah, and
French language.
It's
as well as English. Of
it's
course.
a small festival, but we screen a lot. We get a lot of submissions, and it's a filmmakers festival. It's for the filmmakers first. We love the community, and the community, that's good that they come out, but it's really filmmakers festival, and there's just a lot of things happening. There's deals are made, networking, and they seem to love us, Rick. They spread the word. It's more.
They love us because
You're on my radar now, so I've decided that I'm going to attend next year.
Let me just say this: you end up at our house late into the night. We'll have boudin, smoked sausage, wine, you name it.
And you do have people from all around the world. You have Japanese people talking. You have a room full of Francophiles and just all from all over, and you're gonna have fun. And I think that spirit. This year we had that spirit of that's still kind of in our young COTB DNA, if you will, of Katrina, how it started, and the hurt that we experienced when Katrina happened. It was really difficult and hard. And this year it was the fires in LA, and there were people who all of a sudden they said, we're coming. They said, the young director said, my producer is now living with me because his house burnt. I said, come here, we'll take care of y'all. Come here. And they did, and they felt it.
What a connection because of the destruction of Katrina, and then that happened there.
I mean, the fires were really something else. I was very fortunate that I was not affected, but it did get very close. I did see flames, and I did have my car packed for about a week. So
I'm sure.
It's an unusually scary time here in LA, for sure.
We were thinking of y'all because we can
for sure
imagine. I mean, the first time I went back to New Orleans and saw the destruction, I mean, we were just sobbing. It was anyway.
And New Orleans is a very special place for me. I've been a handful of times. There's something about that city, the magic of that city. And I remember after Hurricane Katrina, it was just devastating to see all of that.
It was. It's tough.
Well,
we
want you to come. We want you to come
to the festival.
Yeah,
I absolutely will. Trust me, I'm coming. I'm making plans for it now. So
we'll get you here and get you maybe on a jury.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm in. So I know I could talk to you guys all day long. You are absolutely my two new favorite people in the entire world. But I do want to, I've got a few more things I want to talk about this film, because there's just some stuff that I've got to just praise you about. And you touched on this a little bit earlier about the cinematography and the look of the film and the color, everything that you did to sort of give this film the look that it had. I think you mentioned you wanted it to feel like something out of the 70s and 80s. And I was going to say it had a very retro film look and feel to me.
Thanks, yeah.
But the cinematography, I mean, just some of those shots, those long shots, and I think you had some drones or something maybe in there. I saw a lot of
that was a way for transitioning, and we're working with good cadence post in the end in there. And I brought in a drone photographer from Austin and actually shot the dream sequence with my old film crew out of Austin. And I wanted, Rick, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wanted to play out that what I said earlier, to bring out that Point Noire as a character, that look, that feel, the location, the darkness, the grittiness, with the feel of that.
And also the reference, I like what you did, because I don't know if you remember in there where the main character references the warehouse in New Orleans and having been to a concert there for the Allman Brothers. And now this guy did that, growing up. He tells stories.
I was a hippie.
He drove into New Orleans and watching
the Allman Brothers band. That was like a faith to me. Yeah, I know.
And so he said, we're putting that in there. So, it harkens back to that period of time, even though it's set in current times, if you will. And I like that.
And this is a truth, about that area, because I grew up. My grandparents were from that area, and it's, which is now Richard, but it was Point Noire.
Point Noire.
And I'm sorry, we were always 10, 15 years behind y'all on the West Coast.
I grew up in North Carolina, so was I.
You understand.
Well, you can dig this. You can dig this. And so, yeah. So it was just, that was part of it.
We
too.
love it
that
here. We don't care if we're a little behind.
Yeah, well, it's part of the look, and the double murders were supposed to take place 30 years before, and I wanted that, but I wanted it even 10, 15, 20 years before that of a look, which is the 70s,
And there was, in that dream sequence, was it a dream sequence or a flashback? There's definitely, I love how you play with that visual as well and that aesthetic. And it just, I loved it. I loved, like, you did a lot of sort of panning and tracking shots that I absolutely just slow and methodical.
It was slow, and that was it's part of my I guess my style. I just, go every once in a while, having a little feel of a documentary, but those real slick, they're just very slow dollies. It's going on all the time. It's one
of my favorite things in film.
It's so subtle that the average person watching the film doesn't even know you're dollying most of the time, but you are. It's constantly moving, and we blocked it off, like the whole film like that, time like that, not rushed.
Well, it's definitely not a fast action film, if that's what you're looking for.
And my first AD never really came between. I did give the cinematographer a lot of time, to be able to set up and we were ready.
Thoughtful.
The actors were ready, because we rehearsed the whole time and in advance, and it just, we hope we pulled it off.
Everybody was very professional. It was great.
It looked amazing. I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. So, Rebecca, this might be leaning towards you a little bit more. There's a moment in the film that really struck me, and it's fairly early on with Dolores, where she's meeting with Joel Richard, and after she leaves that meeting and she's outside of the cell or the holding room or wherever they're at, she takes a minute and leans up against the wall, because I think it's just, I interpret it as everything had just, finally reached a point with her, and it just kind of it hit her all at once. And I'm just, it made me wonder if you've had moments like that in your career where you've had that experience where it's just like everything hits you all at once.
She's currently going through it right
I
now.
had one yesterday. I think today too. But when you do, and we don't, it's not, there was one thought, do we count down to the execution? Do we show that we're ticking away, 30 days or whatever? And we decided to stay away from that, but just to say he's going to be executed if they don't stop it. And so there's nothing as a lawyer more powerful than literally dealing with, if I make this decision or do that decision or file this or say that, it can make the difference between literally the life or death of the client. And it was in that conversation where she talks to him and he says, it's a long shot, right, maybe the best case scenario is a life sentence. And she's the lawyer. We got to try. We're going to do it. We're going to make it work.
It's kind of like, and let her finish, of course, but it was kind of like when I captured it, it was like, she gets up, she says, well, we better get to work, got to get to work. But her realization when she stopped there, I wanted that moment, saying, but I'm doing everything I can.
I mean, it's like, oh my God, this guy
possibly can.
And I'm telling him, but so that's very real. And interestingly, for that scene at one point, and when I was able to go on set and watch when they filmed that. And at some point, Miriam came over to me crying and hugged me and said, I don't see how you do this work. And I could cry now. It was so intense between us.
Yeah, she was, because she fashioned herself completely about what Rebecca was. She tried. And
she took my brand new briefcase and took it everywhere with her in the film.
She slept with her briefcase.
I love it. So it's those subtle things for me that I think I tend to pick up on. And I remember when that happened, just thinking about you.
It's very real. It's very, very real.
And real quick, I want to talk about music, because we talked about, sound design and all of this. Music, like there's a lot of music that you played through your documentaries that really, like, again, teleported me back in time to when I grew up. I was familiar with, it's not really bluegrass, but it reminded me of bluegrass music that I would listen to and would hear. But there's a song at the end of the film that I absolutely loved. I was pulling out my phone because I actually Shazammed it. I want this song. It's by Zachary Richard.
Yes.
And that song was so beautiful and so striking to me that, like I said, I want to purchase it. So I Shazammed it. But I'd love you to talk a little bit about just sort of what your vision for how you approach the music and how it kind of takes on a life of its own and really does, like we talked about, it's a very large part of what you can evoke through film.
Well, my films are normally music driven, and Dirty Rice was even more so. But this film brought in a lot of the old. It starts off with a very traditional 1929 song, La Valse de Point Noire, which was written and composed by my great uncle Angelas Lejeune, and that's really a stepping stone into the film itself. And I wanted that, but I wanted a progression that went in, and I knew that I had to bring in a music composer that brought in a lot. But as we progressed, and as you get to the end, the song was Zachary Richard, who we will be with tomorrow, by the way. I'll tell him you brought that up. He's like an Elvis Presley in Canada and in Quebec. He's a big star and a great singer, great guy. And I wanted that feeling, because that song at the end, that song was a song he wrote for his mom, who he just buried a couple of years ago. Yeah, so that's why it's so moving, and it rolls in, the music slowly rolls in to the, not giving away the end of the movie, but into the Joel's ultimate.
Don't say anything more.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
where
exactly.
he goes, where the
It just
post-
rolls into the end of the movie. We'll leave it at
It
that.
rolls
You'll have
into
to
the
see it
end of the
yourself.
And
So,
we, Pat, I love watching him. Well, first of all, he's an editor, even though other people do the cut. Pat
I make
is
all
a real hands-on
well,
editor.
I'm old school because I
He-
make all the edit decisions, but I'm not a button pusher. And
He's
you
not,
got I
but
work with people
still.
who really are slick
And
can
then he looks
bring
at
it to
it
where
every cut like
to
a million
my-
times.
Mhm.
And he
we all do,
drives
we all
the
do.
editors crazy, but they appreciate his, and
They-
it's the same with the
They
music
love me
and the
afterwards.
sound. And it was really fun to watch him as he made his final decisions on the music
And sound. I
and this-
thinned things out a lot. I brought it to a more realistic, especially sound patterns. And you can't. We had the first group of sound people. I mean, they're not from here, and you can't sit in Santa Fe and do. You can't. I know what a water bird sounds like, and I know what a tree bird sounds like, and you won't have tree birds in the marshes, in the swamp. And so those things, I thinned everything out and found more. I wanted to really be as realistic as you can, but as we start off with this, sound design is so important, and you need that fullness to it.
Yep.
So I didn't damage any of that, but I didn't get overly crazy with nature, if you will.
Now, I'm curious when it comes to music, are you like me and that you will take a scene that is pretty close to being edited, but there's no music really in it yet, and just start dropping in tracks in a editing software so you can kind of get a feel for what?
Yes.
That's really what he did.
Yes,
Wow.
that's right. Right on. Yeah. I know, I have preconceived notions and stuff that I want to do, and sometimes it often works, but it doesn't always work. So you go from there.
But I mean, he's committed to local music artists.
Well, yeah,
Love
yes,
that.
yeah. Well,
I mean, really, there's so much good music in South Louisiana, and you're doing something based in South Louisiana. It might as well be South Louisiana music.
we have a film that's being released that I did several years back, a few years back, that was never released. So the distributor, they want to release it down in Toronto, and I'm a big fan. And that's when I worked with Chris Christopherson, a lot of people, but it's on Jerry McGee, and Jerry was the guitarist for the Ventures, and they outsold the Beatles 2-1 when the Beatles were in the heyday in Japan. So, and it has our bread butter for that project in Japan, obviously, but that was a music doc. It's not how do you say that?
It's not a performance.
It's
thing.
not performance at all, really, very little. But it's one of them that it really, with what you brought out.
And here's this guy.
I could really do what I think. I like to brag and think that I do well, and it's bringing that music in and that
Layering it in. Yep.
and it so propels your project forward.
Mm-hmm. But
Because
in this case,
if you're nailing it, it because it's moving forward.
You're again, just so he and his audience know that again, he's the lead guitarist for the Ventures, Jerry McGee, but he's from Eunice, Louisiana, which is where Pat's from. So it's always a Cajun connection, which I respect. That's who he is and what he's about.
Well, I love it. All right. What is next for Point Noire? We talked about this a little bit. So I know there's a distribution deal coming later in the year. It sounds like fall. Where can people find the film right now? So there's a film festival coming up in
New Orleans, March 15th, and the New Orleans French Film Festival. It's
nice. When is that running? Because I'm in New Orleans at the end of the month. So
we'd love to have you there. It's the festival is only like 3 days, 4 days. 4 days.
It's like Wednesday through Sunday, I believe.
Yeah, 4 days.
And we're screening on a Saturday, so it's towards the end of the festival. You'll probably miss it if it's later.
I'll go and look it up online and see what I can figure out. So I think I'm traveling in on the 27th though. So
yeah, that's
I'm gonna miss it, but
And speaking of the 27th, we're screening at a fantastic theater in Baton Rouge, the Manship Theater in downtown Baton Rouge on April 27th.
We're not trying to get it in anywhere. People approaching us. We haven't engaged a place in Austin, and
we're looking at screening.
What we're doing, we've turned down 3 film festivals because we're trying to place it. We're asked by this and trying to listen to. We have a producer's rep, and so we had a chance to play a festival that they wanted us as for closing night of their festival. And I said, we passed on it because we weren't even finished the film. And this was, I'd seen the rough cut. We submitted the rough cut and they wanted it. And now we're going to end up playing it in August this year.
It's in Quebec,
so some of the things we did were worked. And we don't know if we messed up yet on anything else, but it's, for me, for this old guy right here, for me, it's all about getting distribution and getting the film in theaters. And we know that that's going to happen. And so I'm excited about that.
Honestly,
I'm hoping it gets to the West Coast. That's up to our distributor in Toronto. Hopefully we can get, I don't even know the art houses anymore on the West Coast, but I know they have some. They should.
This guy, I can tell you, Rick, if he had to choose, if somebody said, do you want it on streaming or in theaters? He'd say theaters.
Well, theaters,
I mean, he's just
theaters all the time. I'm like, theaters, please. Yeah. So where can people find out more about Cinema on the Bayou? Is there a website and social media and all of that good stuff?
All of the above. The website is CinemaOnTheBayou.com. So pretty straightforward. And it's the same. It's easy to find us. We abbreviate COTB, Cinema on the Bayou, on like Facebook and Instagram. And anyway, we're going to be opening up for submissions soon via FilmFreeway. I hadn't done it yet because we just finished. But anyway, and we're always the last week in January. It's an 8-day film festival, the last week in January. And we're really.
I will put all that in the show notes. Yeah, I'll put all that information in the show notes. I'll put it in the video version as well on screen, so it's all there and easy to find for you guys.
Cool deal.
I have talked your ear off today, so
it's been fun.
It's been great fun.
I love you guys. Like I said, you guys are my new favorite. So,
well, we loved you already. I mean, really, you got to come see us. You really do.
I absolutely will. I promise you. You will not get rid of me. You may regret saying
no, we won't.
And you won't regret coming. I promise you. And, I tell all the filmmakers, it's on FilmFreeway. They come. I said, I weigh you when you get here, and I weigh you when you leave. And I promise you, will not lose weight over here, and you will leave with a smile. And they all do. I mean,
well, you love wine, I love wine, so I already knew I'm in.
Yeah, it's a fun time, and it is. We do have our magical moments, and we do love our filmmakers, our independent filmmakers. Who, by the way, one of them said one time, "Why do they call us independent? We're so dependent on everyone."
That is a great point, actually. I may borrow that. I'll give you credit, but I will definitely borrow
let's stay in touch. Let's stay in touch, and we're
thank you for what you do too.
Yeah, we're fans now. We're gonna be watching you too. So you're active. We looked you up. I've been watching a few of your shows. Mm-hmm. You're doing some good stuff. Really good.
My main show focuses in on horror writers, and I talk to a lot of novelists and book authors, but I've always wanted to have a side gig, if you will, to talk to independent filmmakers. Mm-hmm. So they're very passionate about it, and I know that you are. So I appreciate you coming on here and talking to me today.
Well, we hope we did an okay job, and we thank
you did a fantastic job.
Thank you, Ray.
Day all day.
Fishing for a compliment, but thank you.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys next time on Conversations with Creators. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks, Chris.